Welcome, everybody, to this week's podcast episode for the Financial Freedom for Physicians podcast. I'm your host, Dr. Christopher Liu. And as you know, we have 4 types of freedom: time, financial, location, health freedom. And in that light, I'm always bringing guests that are doing innovative things on the cutting edge, impacting the world. So today we have Jason Skeesick, and he's an entrepreneurial evangelist with a military mindset and the spirit of a puppy. So we're going to talk all about entrepreneurship, core values, building a tribe, and succeeding in business and life. So Jason, welcome.
Dr. Chris, thank you. It's so nice to meet you. I'm really excited to be here today.
Yeah. You have quite an interesting bio background. You know, you do a lot of interesting things. I know you're in jiu-jitsu, and which is really, great. And so tell us how you got started, your bio, and what you do, and we'll go from there.
Yeah. So I guess for me, I've had a meandering path up the hill, Doc. I started out coming out of high school. I didn't really find any real clear path or direction aside from playing pool and poker till all hours of the night. And so my mother and I agreed that it was time to find some discipline. So I enlisted in the United States Army. Spent 4 years in the Army working as an engineer, which really just means that I was digging holes and pulling cable and terminating fiber optics. And then from there, moved back to Chicago with a couple of military friends. And I, at the same time, enrolled back in school for finance, and we started this small little hobby, this little jobby or whatever you want to call it, a little CrossFit gym and it was a rock climbing gym at the time as well, in the 4th floor of a mostly empty warehouse, because we got a really great deal on it. And so, over the years that's evolved to the point where I was sitting in boardrooms on $20, $30, $50 million deals as a commercial analyst, working with really big, well-known companies. And, I had my boss, my boss's boss, my boss's boss's boss, and his boss, and the entrepreneur. And the whole time I only could really see eye to eye with the entrepreneur. And then separately, I'm supposed to be working on these deals, and I would spend most of my time thinking about my, $9,000 a month revenue, hobby gym. So eventually made my path to full-time entrepreneurship. And as soon as I did, we had a ton of success. We built a great tribe, both as a team and as a community of clients, and did that for the past 12 years. And have been coaching entrepreneurs for about the past 4, which I love. Yeah, so that's pretty much gets us to close to here. I sold the majority of my gym, and I sold my coaching business last year. And so for the last year, I've been on a mini retirement, just pursuing spending time with my family, kickboxing and jiu-jitsu every day, and doing a podcast, talking to entrepreneurs like you every single day as much as I can. And I have never gotten off a call like this without more energy than when I got on. So pretty happy boy these days.
Yeah, you've done it. What's interesting is you've stuck to your core values and really flourished under that. So we'll talk about core values and talk with the audience. What are your core values, and why are they important to you?
Okay, that's just the best question you could ask, right? I will start by saying, it sounds like a lot of your audience is probably doctors, which means maybe they run their own practice, or maybe they work for a large company. I don't think that matters. I think of core values as being there whether you identify them or not, right? They're the ember that burns inside you. They're the thing that makes you who you are. They're not who you wish you were, and they're not who you want to become. They're who you are. And if you understand them, you can use them to be more than you currently are. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so for me, and I encourage anybody listening, regardless of their entrepreneurial status, to do work like this. When I first filed my LLC, probably back in 2010, we thought we came up with core values, and then we had promptly put them in a shelf or in a file on a Google Drive somewhere, and just never thought about it again. And we probably borrowed them from Apple and McDonald's and Best Buy or something. And that's just not what your core values are, right? And when I did finally have a mentor who pointed me in the right direction for actually doing the deep dive work that it takes to understand what your core values are and how they make you up as a person, I found that all of a sudden I had this 5-sided piece, like a puzzle piece, that I could hold up to my past decisions, relationships, decisions we made in the business, and to the decisions I was about to make. And so I'll give you what my core values are. So my core values are military mindset, which is like discipline, hardworking, shows up on time, always takes responsibility. That's combined with spirit of the puppy. Spirit of the puppy is like playful, fun. If you ever came in my gym, it was like you walked in on a big golden retriever, right? Or an Australian shepherd. Hey, how's it going? I'm very big, love talking to people, love trying new things, have a ton of hobbies. I get energy from people. And then the rest of my core values, there's 3 more, and they're not about who I am. I have one that's how I work, which I call head up, feet moving, which means I'm always, speed of execution, moving forward, but I'm also aware of the challenges as they arise, of needing to make changes in direction. The next one is how I communicate with others best. That's tribal. I'm very tribal, especially at the time I was running a CrossFit gym. We're all wearing similar clothes. We're all beating our chest and, pumping each other up and having a great time. And then my last one is invested. And what that means is that what I get out of bed in the morning is because I'm invested in myself, I'm invested in my family, my friends, my clients, and my employees. And so those are the things that guide me. That's my North Star. And so with those 5 core values and what they mean to me and my team, by the way, we would use them in conversation all the time. We then were able to kind of better understand exactly the decisions we had made and why they either did or didn't work, and evaluate things and possible hires and decisions that we make into the future.
Yeah, that's interesting. Once you uncover who you are and what you resonate with, it's amazing to see people flourish. I'm interested in military, because you went through the military, and what are some of the lessons you learned by applying military experience to entrepreneurship?
That's a really good question. So for starters, something you should understand about the military, and you probably already intuitively know this, but I'm going to kind of break it down for you, is they take almost everybody. It's a pretty broad swath of the population that can go to the military and succeed. So what you do, you find yourself in the military, and you find that you're in a group of people that have just such a broad variation in ability, in interest, in background, in personality. But we're not going anywhere, which means it's very rare and difficult to get kicked out or quit the military, right? And so what they've done is they've figured out systems for like basic training. Basic training is getting you on the right page with the military core values. We literally repeated military core values every single day. And there was behaviors and things that they did. They always say they break you down to build you up. And I think in some sense that's true. But what they're really doing is they're getting cultural fits for their organization. And I've taken that to heart. I definitely spend the very early parts of working with new people in a very basic training, less yelling certainly, but a very basic training type environment where it's mostly about cultural fit. And then when you go on to learn about your job, Chris, they break it down to such a level that anybody could execute a network telecom engineering job, which sounds a lot harder than it is in the military. And then I got out into the real world and realized it is in fact pretty detailed. But in the military, what they do is they make sure that the training is so clear, so thorough, so idiot proof, and then repeated over and over and over again to the point where you can't screw it up. And that's why when I work with entrepreneurs, or even myself in training, whenever we come across stumbling blocks, or an employee doesn't do what you expect them to do, it always reminds me of the military where I go like, oh, this is your fault, dummy, because you didn't teach them the way that the military would have. Because I can tell you right now, if my drill sergeant had taught that person how to write these emails and send them out on time, they would have got sent out right and on time, right?
Yeah, it's quite interesting, because I always thought, because entrepreneurs, they don't figure, this, my first impression is they may struggle in the military because, they are very independent and, they have their own thoughts. And so it's just interesting to see someone from a military background into entrepreneurship. And, it's quite interesting to see how you apply that to your business.
Yeah. And I would react to that too and say that, that I only needed 4 years, Chris. I couldn't have taken 4 years in a day, but don't get me wrong. Yeah, definitely there were elements of my personality. The spirit of the puppy was not born to be in the military, right? And that's what I was born with, was the spirit of the puppy. And so whether you want to call that ADD or entrepreneur's disease, you're right. But what I will tell you is the best leaders in the world will all tell you that they were good followers before they were good leaders. I don't know anybody who's a really, really elite leader, whether you talk about the Jocko Willinks of the world, or you talk about the Steve Jobses of the world, or any of these people, those people were followers at one point, and then eventually were able to, maybe Steve Jobs isn't the best example, but and then they were able to break free of that. And because ultimately what you're doing is you're trying to inspire people, either in whatever form you choose or are suited to. You're inspiring people to go out and perform on your behalf to impact the world with your mission and vision. And in order to do that, you need to understand what those people are going through, and you need to be able to recruit them to want to do this stuff for you. Does that make sense?
Yeah. And then you also talk about building a tribe, because I know CrossFit has been well known for, its community and, its followers. So tell us the importance of building a tribe and how you did that.
Yeah, that's a great question. It's something that I think about a lot, because ever since, one of the reasons I'm an entrepreneur is because I miss working in this tight, cohesive, really kind of elite team that I worked with in the military. And the only place I've been able to find that has been in tribal organizations, in organizations where, literally the metaphors that you probably use as much as I do, shoulder to shoulder, fight back to back. You got my six, we're fighting out of a foxhole. Who do I want in a foxhole? There's a reason why those things are there. And it's because it's only when, if it's just a job, it's really difficult to have the camaraderie, the brotherhood and sisterhood that comes along with sort of that military kind of tribal feeling. And so for us, if there's anything I've become an expert in, it's creating a tribal team that I don't pay that well, right? Because as a CrossFit gym, I'm not paying them $150,000 a year, right? And so what we all had to be was we all had to be united around some common mission, and that mission was to change people's lives, to give them health, to make them be able to do things that they previously thought were impossible, which is kind of what a CrossFit coach's job is to do. We're like walking on our hands and doing rings and all sorts of stuff that maybe, Susan, who's, a single mom, never thought she would be able to do. And that doesn't come without some element of a tribal culture, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I really like CrossFit is, the followers are very loyal, they're devoted, and it's really interesting that you went into fitness and health. How did going into this field help you find success as a leader and business owner?
Well, what I found was, in the beginning, coming out of the military, it was two other military guys and I, and we were doing CrossFit not at an elite level. We're not like sponsored and like working out at the CrossFit games or anything like that, but we were very good, very fit, very strong, very aggressive, and had just come back from war. And what I found was, when I was one of the best athletes in the gym, if not the best athlete, the people around me kind of wilted. They weren't inspired by that. They would be like, oh, Jason is great, and Dan is great, and Garnett is great, and we're just doing step-ups over here in the corner, or I can't do that, I can't do this. As soon as I had an injury and also had shifted my focus towards weightlifting for a period of time, and as soon as I was not the central figure physically, all of a sudden all those other athletes flourished, and we actually had a much better result for the physical parts of our gym. And also that corresponded with me realizing it wasn't my goals that my community would rally around. It was in fact their goals. And so we put a little bit more of an emphasis on aesthetics than I would normally do. And we put a little bit more of an emphasis on weight loss than I would ever do. And because of that, we got people in the door who then thrived and turned into, really virtuous examples of human beings. I think, especially as a physician, health and fitness and medical, there's more than business going on there, right? You're trying to make better humans. And like the healthier and fitter and happier that they are, everything else kind of is impacted by that, right?
It's quite interesting how things you can focus on in different areas and apply those different areas. One question I get quite often is, entrepreneurship, you're working hard, a lot of entrepreneurs, they love their work, but how can entrepreneurs fill their days with work that gives them energy and still be successful?
It's a really good question. So I think a lot of folks start businesses, particularly, this is my expertise, right? Particularly in fitness, you start a business out of passion and love. You want to make an impact on the world through that. And you don't realize that there's going to be spreadsheets involved, and there's going to be credit cards involved, and there's going to be emails involved, and all these other things, bills, right? One of the things you need to realize, I call it the beautiful butterfly paradox, is on the one hand, you're a beautiful butterfly. You're an entrepreneur. You created something where once there was nothing, and you set it free into the world, and you are special. And on the other hand, everybody should be able to do what you do. These two ideas do not coexist, right? And so what you need to realize as an entrepreneur is that the magic that you think is between your ears is actually quite scientific. And if you take the time to codify it and detail it for those folks that maybe aren't, visionary entrepreneurs, you're going to get a lot better results. And then separately, there are people who love digging into spreadsheets. I'm actually one of them, by the way. There are people who love checking in with clients every single morning and doing disciplined work. There are people who I met at the bank who love reading legal contracts and making sure that covenants are upheld every single month. That's not me, but those people exist. And you can find those folks who can get just as excited for your core values and your mission. They just happen to love different aspects of it than you do. And I've been successful at doing that over the years.
Yeah, you found a lot of success, and a lot of individuals are interested in hearing about you. I know a lot of the audience is into fitness and jiu-jitsu as well. So how can people follow you? I know you have a website, contact you, and maybe work with you.
Well, so for starters, we talked earlier about core values, and I mentioned military mindset and the spirit of the puppy. Well, this tattoo, if you're watching the video, is the military mindset is the spear, and the clover is the spirit of the puppy. And so that is why my podcast and my website is Spear and Clover, spearandclover.com, Spear and Clover on Instagram, Jason Skeesick, no spaces, on Instagram as well. And honestly, whether you're a physician, an entrepreneur, or maybe thinking about an entrepreneurial idea, I spent the last year getting on phone calls with entrepreneurs. So I would love to hear from you, and I would love to see if I can help in any way that I can.
Yeah, it's been a great discussion. So glad we were able to connect, and thanks for sharing all your alpha and your wisdom. For all the listeners out there, Jason's resources will be in the links and show notes. So thanks so much, and be sure to follow Jason on all of his media channels and website. And we look forward to hearing about your future success.